it'll be on YouTube. We'll have first an informational talk about another project, and then we'll get to 49th Street. Then we'll ask questions, probably take a vote. And that's the way it goes. But if you go online, perhaps that may weigh in. In the meantime, let's introduce ourselves. I'm JD, on the committee, co-chair.
I'm Paul Devlin, co-chair. Joe Sucha, member.
Robin Battle, public member.
Andrew Miller, member.
Ted Arenas, member. Brian Weber, public member.
Lawrence Rubin.
And Frank Alzubia, member.
Welcome. And our guest in the back, you want to introduce yourself? Please tell me who you are.
I'm Bill Lerner.
Welcome, Bill.
Richard Lobel, Sean Lobel.
Okay.
Amanda Ionati of Sheldon Mobile.
Okay.
Yeah, Rizzo Architecture.
Okay.
Sandy Martin.
Okay, welcome everybody.
One more.
The,
Oh,
Oh, one more.
I'm Dashel for just 40 seconds.
Okay. Oh, you're dashing.
Press is in the room.
Always careful about what we say.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce myself.
Kevin
Kevin Collins.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Chief.
We have two items on the agenda tonight. They're both very important. And development that is going to go on. The first item is about projects, 801 11th Avenue and 629 West 54th. Near Dewitt Clinton Park. I just want to explain a little something. These applicants, the developers, before they come to a committee meeting, we usually have this informational meeting, and it's usually me and Paul, and if it's housing, Joe will help us out. And what we say to them is, here's what you should bring to the committee. We're not making any decisions. Here's some questions that are going to come up to prepare them to come to the committee. We also tell them how vicious the committee is and to be prepared for all kinds of questions. For some reason, they didn't come tonight. I'm not sure why, but they said they were not prepared. Very strange.
Because they're not quite prepared when you met them.
Yes, that's true. The problem is January 30th, Department of City Planning is holding the scoping hearing. So we have to respond with questions about the scoping, just like everybody did at the last meeting for the Western Railroad, if you recall, took one of those questions. So we have to do something tonight. And then we'll vote on a list of questions, come up with questions, or we'll get questions later in a week or two. Everybody takes sections. We'll take them to the executive committee, we'll get approval for that. And then at the January 30th hearings, if we choose to, we can speak. And then at the February board meeting, we'll have a letter with those questions. L,
There are two developers actually.
are they L,
Well, there's two LLCs.
12, 6, yeah. So we'll get to that in just a second. So that's gonna be the agenda tonight. On this item, we're gonna talk about that. Now, Paul and I have asked Joe to rehash what we heard at the informational meeting, and I think we have some slides to show what they showed us. So we can get an idea, and then we can start raising questions to ask, and then we can assign those segments, that we can prepare. So ask any questions to Joe. Or, to us about this. So Joe, if you don't mind, can you tell us?
Can I just interject 1 second? Because a couple people are still relatively new to the process, what scoping process means, so the environment versus you. Right, versus you. So the environment, under secret regulations, the City Environmental Quality Act, there's a process of environmental impact review. This is the scoping process in which they determine what questions they're going to be investigating. So this is our opportunity to make sure that we put on the list the things they need to study, that then come out later, there'll be a final scope that'll say, this is what we're going to study. Then there's the environmental impact draft of that statement, of what they studied based on what we asked them to. So this is really our first opportunity to get in a lot of the issues. If we don't ask during the draft scoping, it's hard to add it, it's out of scope.
And it can't be,
So it can't be considered as part of the study later, so it's an important step in that.
And normally we could ask the question tonight to them and get answers, but now that we can't, you're gonna have to raise all kinds of questions. So don't hesitate. So Joe.
so Janine, everyone that saw in the Dropbox, we dropped some couple of pages from the affordable housing plan. Janine, can you bring those up? Because we have to set the stage as to where this came from at all.
And how it relates to the housing.
First, I'm bringing up the presentation, correct?
Oh, no, not their presentation, it's the presentation, just those four, that PDF, the 4 slides from the housing plan,
Okay,
because that'll talk about why they came. That's their presentation.
yeah, no, sorry, the way my screen is set up is just in the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, that's it, okay, so, you're looking at, from page 140 of the affordable housing plan. And the community board, when it adopted the plan, hold on a second. Yeah, when we adopted the plans, the community board looked at certain parts of Western Clinton, right, Western Health Kitchen. And knew that the first block, 1 block in from the river, was part of the Hudson River Park transfer of development rights district, right? So that's a big thing, selling development rights from the Hudson River Park in order to upzone certain areas along the blocks between 11th and 12th Avenues.
So Joe, everybody get aware of what that's all about, Kevin, you know, your new, remember that?
What's the
The
first item?
What transfer development rights are and how
All right,
it.
let me step back. Yeah.
It was back when.
Right, so again, let me step even further. The housing plan has multiple sections. There's one section that's all about zoning text amendments or rezoning in order to get more housing in Hell's Kitchen and Chelsea. And there's subsets inside that, right? One of the subsets looks at all the industrial land between 11th and 12th and determining how that could be rezoned for residential use with the various things that would govern it. How would that be managed, right? Whether that's height, bulk, the use of industrial on the base and then something above, like, for example, some of these sites north of 54th Street have cars, auto bodies or dealerships, and they have union jobs in them. And so we've done a lot of text amendments that allow you to keep auto body repair or dealer repair in a residential building, which would normally be allowed. So we did a lot of fine tuning thinking about this. But one of the things that this is, you see how that a green and then that orange angle is, right? It's not only rezoning like we would normally do, but Hudson River Park in a major rezoning action that was passed about 10 years ago was allowed to sell its development rights from the piers as a way to raise funds to keep the park renovated, to do new piers, and also to actually maintain the park, right? So that, right, how did, like, Pier 40 sold development rights to build a big Google building, you know, on Houston Street.
And it's limited where those rights can go.
Only between 11th and 12th Avenues, right, 1 block east of the river. And to do this, how the zoning works is the developer must actually propose a rezoning, right, for those blocks to include it in the district. The district says it can have these boundaries, but one by one, they will propose to rezone.
Gotcha.
Now, in our district, the only area that was done so far is a block called 675, block 675, 11th to 12th, between 29th and 30th streets. There's 2 developments there. And we worked heavily back and forth, not only to get the affordable housing, because the zoning was manufacturing, we're turning it to commercial and residential, but to get a landing spot for Hudson River Park development rights. And this board was exceptional. At that point, the prior administration of HRPT cut themselves a bad deal. We actually got them more money than they asked for, which is unbelievable. Right? We did a study on this. Lee Compton, Paul, we got together. And so in our plan, we said, oh, this can be replicated in other areas. One of the other areas is the northern part of the district, House Kitchen West, north of Dewitt Park, between 11th and 12th. And there's only a few blocks there on both sides of 11th Avenue. Now, the development rights can only land between 11 and 12. There's also some industrial sites on the east side 11. And we looked at rezoning for those two. So that tells you specifically that, it must be inclusionary housing tied with it. At one point, prior version of the trust felt they could just do no inclusionary housing at all. And that's not happening, so not this administration or the prior one. And therefore, we identified sites. So if you go to the next slide. Gene.
Thank you.
There's a lot of background.
Sure, thanks.
The next slide, yeah. Just page down, it's a PDF. There we go, okay. So, yeah, there we go. So here's how this whole project in front of us tonight started. In our plan, page 146, read it. There is a site between 55th and 56th Streets that is currently zoned manufacturing, M15, and FAR 5. And we propose that this become a dense residential site up to 12 FAR. It started.
Well, keep in mind 12 is the max of that one.
Right, of course.
12 for both sides, yeah?
But, so here's what happened. You're seeing this as one site, because this is the shocking part. The developer looked at our plan and said, oh, there's more than one developer around here, could you do more than one thing? And they were surprised when the leadership of the board said, certainly, let's figure this out, let's try to see what we can do here, right? So this only concerned the plan, the block between 5.5 and 5.6, right? And the goal at that point was to make sure there's that industrial use, specifically for the dealerships, because that's not permitted, and it's kind of rezoned. And to allow there to be slender buildings, so they're not gonna be massive things next to the river, to manage the height, right? And to include bulk and height restrictions, so you crafted a building that was not just gonna be sticking up and starting to surround the entire district with a wall, right? Our initial goal here was that this could produce around 793 housing units, of which there'd be 20% affordable. We also said in all of our plan, we want a range of affordability, not just low income. So what happened is, and Janine, can you put the cursor on the area in pink on 12th Avenue? On between 5.4 and 5.6, between 5.4. Well, that's correct. So what happened is, out of the blue, a developer approached the board saying they owned a car dealership in this block here, which was not in our plan, just the block from the 12th Avenue. And would the board be supported, interested to look about housing for that site also? And so we said to them, actually, there's a site to the north that's in our plan. What if you engaged with that owner and came back to the board with not one site, but two sites for affordable housing? And that's exactly where we are today. So, and that meant that even though we had not identified it, we looked at it, what did we use, how does it work, is it possible? And gave them some indication that that could be used for discussion purposes. And they have come now, go to the next slide, sorry. So we just highlighted this was the one slide alone, the 793 units. But in total, you'll see the unit count is different. However, this has now gone from a guide, an idea and a plan to an actual, here's a ULURP to figure out how to develop and get real development happening. I think that's the last for that part, and I can go over to starting these, okay?
Great.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Questions by question.
Yeah.
What's the timeframes of the environmental review process versus the ULURP process?
They're concurrent. So there's always some overlap. They started, and then it'll continue, and they get to a point where it's enough to be certified, and they'll actually do that.
And then once it's certified, the clock starts ticking.
Yeah.
ULURP.
Okay, that's right.
Joe,
Yes.
just so I understand what the exact sites we're talking about for tonight. Because part of the reason I'm sure looking is cold.
Because you walked away, look at.
I walked around, look, let me tell you, it's pretty cold over there.
That's good.
They kind of sold me a Jeep when I hear this. We're talking about 54 and 12. Back,
Judy, can you go back one slide?
Yeah, go back one slide. So, yeah, but I want to know, we showed all of the ownership on this site.
right,
The applicant doesn't have the whole block. They have the block front on 11th, one applicant. The other applicant has the block front on 12 between 5-4 and 5-5.
And that'll be in the presentation, there'll be the two specific spots.
So there's two spaces here and here.
Yeah, we'll see it in
We'll see it in
the
the front.
first pages.
So if you can bring up the presentation, the Hill West presentation.
Thank you very much.
That's your other tab. Right, go to the next page. Make it full screen and then, there you go. So Kevin, this is your answer to your question. The two sites outlined in red are the ones that we're considering for the scoping for the rezoning.
Right,
Block front on 12 between 5-4 and
it's
5-5.
currently occupied,
Yes, occupied.
right,
The other one's vacant.
correct. Yep.
Right, right. And,
The vacant one was the mini dealership,
correct, correct.
yes.
And by the way, both of these companies are family-owned companies that have owned the property for quite some time. These are not new owners come to the neighborhood. You know, industrial area, industrial kind of businesses, car dealerships, that was the main thing. So this kind of slide that they show is, here's the context. Whenever you see this from a developer, they always pick the things that match the most and the highest, trust me. Not every building is high, buildings are all different heights, there's mid-rise and low-rise here too. I'll go to the next page. On the left, you see what is the existing zoning. And yeah, so, no, if you go down to the park. Right, so, yeah, so that one right there, that is in the M15 district, that's an FAR 5. That's part of the rezoning we did in 2009. That got the, when we did the West Clinton rezoning. And then the block on 11th Avenue. Right, that currently is another M23, so that's got an FAR of like 2 or 3. Their proposals obviously are to do rezoning for a FAR 12, but we learned a little bit more when we met them. So they'd like to do. Go to the next one, Janine. And this gives you very clear, Kevin, the actual site delineations, their ownership, and what they compare to here.
Gotcha.
Any questions from anybody? All right. Go to the next page, we'll see some views of the actual buildings that are there today. Now, you should note that the building on, where it says Volvo on 11th Avenue, that building is actually owned by a hedge fund. The upper floors are occupied by very high-end offices. The building immediately east of the 12th Avenue building, that is a major medical center for Weill Cornell. And this is just gives you an indication of how the area has changed so much dramatically. These are all industrial buildings doing production manufacturing. Next page. You're looking at the building on 11th Avenue, which has been vacant for quite some time. This was proposed at one point to be a homeless shelter. And we had a lot of discussions to make sure that the homeless shelter inundation that we got at that point. Go to the next page, please. This is the building on 12th Avenue, and I think the numbers are the ones that are important. That under this current proposal, there'd be 617 units. These are large buildings, there's no question on that. And of those, 154 would be affordable units. So, but you can see the sites, the footprints of the sites are not that big relative to things we've seen before. Next page. This just starts to show you some of these specific, and the developer informed us that although they intend to bring the auto dealership back, the auto dealership may not come back because of problems with that auto dealer and how they're engaging with the franchise and such. So they're presenting in the plan we're going to be seeing 2 proposals, one with the dealership on multiple floors, the other one with residential on those floors, and just retail on the ground floor. I thought it was very like common sense, like they want to do something that it may change, things like that. The next slide just shows you massing, no architecture. And trust me, when you actually see the architecture and they come, we'll have many comments about the architecture. We definitely are trying to work with this developer as we go through this, not to see Houston from 1992 in Dallas, village. Exactly, that's the other J, it's Dallas, it's Dallas, it's totally Dallas. But please look at the next slide, I think, which is really important, which gives you context. So we're seeing quite a large building just north of the park. That is a major residential presence for the first time west of 11th Avenue to this degree in this part of the neighborhood. Now, the pyramid on the upper left, that is the,
Part of King Mills building.
yeah, the arcade goes, yeah, that would be arcade in this room. And yeah, the place that the terraces leave, that's that. So.
And it's gray and dirty looking, so that's the architect got that.
Yes, yes. But the other odd part about this location is, see that curve to the south there? That's the sanitation garage, right, on 12th Avenue, which unbelievably won major awards, I mean, it's, for architecture. Yeah, it really did. And,
It is
and,
nice building.
and on the corner is the salt shed, which serves the entire west side, just like the one down on your Houston Street. So this is definitely another change, but the building that is all those blocks, on 57th Street, that is the north, yeah, no, south, that's it.
That's it.
That's the Cornerstone building, over 1,000 units, the one that people call the cereal box building, things are stacked up.
They don't have the chimney,
Yeah, right, the Con Ed building is immediately to the north of the pyramid, and that's the Community White Power Station that's been designated a landmark. And then if you look to the east, you have what was a very imposing building, that's Twin Towers. That was a 38-story tower, unbelievably high, and now that will be a very modest building. And then the one to the south of that is Mercedes House, right? And you see that, and that's very much trying to step down and such to meet the lower rise on, like that.
When I first started in 19 years ago, that Twin Tower was the biggest building.
It was.
Yeah, absolutely, for decades, right? And then
one with corduroy cement exterior.
yes, corduroy cement's being nice. And then, just to the east of that, the building in the L shapes, that's Harborview Terrace. That's our only night show, two buildings, that one, the one to the south. That one's a senior citizen building, the other one's a family building.
Right.
And then that huge block, just east of Mercedes House is the 18-2 building, the windowless white brick building. And then you get the blocks to the south, which are the Taconic and housing developments that were done, Site 7 and the R25 West 52nd Street. And then you're now into this whole area is a former Clinton urban renewal area. So here you have tenements, where Paul's cursor is, that date from 1858 or 1840. They were the first buildings built when the streets were platted, meaning laid out. And it's surrounded by this park, right? This park used to be bigger, it's cut into piece when the West Side Highway came up and reduced the park. So this is a major commercial or residential presence.
Yeah, just for context, future context, 56, 57.
So yeah, you can look, Paul will show you the block. Yeah, now that's between 56 to 57, between 10 to 11. That entire block is owned by CBS. CBS, for the last 2.5 years, has put out request proposals for developers to redevelop the block, right? A couple things with this. First, the RFP said they could either relocate CBS permanently offsite or send them offsite temporarily and come back. Right? So it is now down to 2 development teams that CBS will choose to redevelop this entire block. However, there's a whole CBS, Viacom, Paramount mergers and acquisition thing that is throwing a lot of spanners into this works. However, but this, one of the final 2 applicants just briefed the board this week. And this will be a very large project. If one or the other developers is awarded, it will be over 1,000 units. Sorry, 2,000. Sorry, I apologize. There will be 2,000 units. There will be 700 affordable, no, 600 affordable units. 600 affordable units. And there will be a CBS studio, possibly. Everyone's very cagey, but they're not to the final part of it yet. And a supermarket, and a range of incomes, and possibly a school.
And almost 6 stories.
Say, and about 60 stories.
Yeah, this will be a very dense development.
It's important to keep in mind, I mean, they would say it's just one building, not to worry about it, but we need to keep the whole country of what this is going to end up in the next.
Can you highlight on the map for me where the CVS block is?
It's that big, that flat
That
line.
whole thing,
This whole thing. from-
Okay.
5, 6, 5, 7, 10, 10 to 11.
It's almost a full avenue.
It's like very.
Yeah, no,
it's like
I've seen the
very
building, I
windows.
wasn't sure where I was on this map.
It's this entire block is one. thing.
Yes, I'm familiar with the CVS. Hard to miss.
Yeah. So yes, the area is now in the final stages of going from manufacturing to residential and commercial. And one of the concerns we always have in these discussions is what's the precedent? Because we want to make sure that it doesn't creep all the way south, right? Because there's a lot of smaller, lower rise buildings to the east. There are tenements that are dispersed on 11th Avenue. It's all about how you balance and do development. So that's one building. Let's turn the slide again. Next, yeah, and this just sort of lays out, this, now we're on the 11th Avenue building, right? You can see it as the footprint is not that large, the building, and then the tower portion shrinks in. So again, these are meant to be both, these are 2 high-rise buildings. That's it. Let's go again to the next one. Now, this is interesting. The developer came and spoke to us, and they were very excited to show us how they recessed the corner to have this nice open space in front of the building. We, as leadership of the board, responded, at this point in time, maybe you don't want to have recessed corners where people can congregate, hang out. We have a huge crime problem, we have an issue, and that kind of stuff. And they heard it very clearly and loudly that, given where we are, we've done this before. It helps give them some idea of how to.
I'm surprised that they would have demonstrated that without having checked out that block, which actually has people.
That block has a major intent on it.
Yes,
So why you would want to say, even with a lobby, there's still stuff developing and there's an account.
Yeah.
I mean, the Clinton Towers struggles with accounts in their boss. Next one, please. So now you can see the building form. This is a slender slab tower. It's much less imposing than the one on 12th Avenue. And then the next slide shows you them together.
so is that height proposed?
Yes, go back,
Closer to
go back.
55th? I'm sorry, 50, that's on 55th.
Go back one, Janine, sorry.
56.
There we go.
Okay.
it's the last thing.
The height on 11th is 525, meaning 52 stories.
Right,
That's with the mechanicals. And the height on 54 is 565.
no, I just mean, it looks like, from this point of view, that side angle, the one that's furthest to the right,
Mhm.
the B-B,
Mhm.
are they proposing that all of the height is off to that
Oh, there,
uptown side of the property?
yeah,
Let's look at the next.
yeah, you'll see it better. The outside, let's show you. There,
Oh, I see,
yeah.
okay.
You know, it's like, what we're just trying to do is break up the mass.
Got it, okay, understood.
And
And the mechanicals on the northern end of
Mhm.
the property. But
Right.
you said that was 500 and
25,
525.
including the mechanicals.
Right, and that is the shorter of the 2 buildings, is
Correct.
that correct?
Yes,
And then I think,
go to the next one, you can see them in each other.
I can't remember the
There.
heights of all the other buildings around it, but the tallest
Is
in the
30
immediate area is 38
38
stories, but
stories.
it's
No,
roughly
the-
425 feet or
the
something.
tallest is GF Cornerstone at 440, and that small condominium on 56 and 11 at 450. So this definitely exceeds it,
Mhm.
and in the discussions that they presented, we were very clear to them saying, we believe that the one on the river should come down, that we prefer bulk over height. And the one on the river should definitely come down, and those wings that they've done there were to create some sort of outdoor space. And the answer is no, get the bulk down, so it's not so imposing on the avenue.
I know you said the architecture was dated, but the massing was also quite dated.
Whatever you see in the massing, you would prefer it is a sheer glass
There's a
tower.
picture, you'll see.
Oh, there's a picture, there's a picture.
Yeah, there's a picture coming.
I'm sorry, yeah, when you see it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, we don't.
They don't have it.
I don't see it. Yeah, they showed it to us, so when I'm talking, so just to give it flavor. It's like blue glass with white stripes.
What's on it?
vertical stripes. I mean, I've never, like really know.
So both these buildings will be 52 stories tall.
No, one is, the one on the river currently is 56.
Stories,
Yes,
right?
and when I say stories, I'm taking the feet and dividing by the number of residential story is about 10 feet. Right,
So give or take.
right, give or take, and Kevin, it includes the bulkhead, the mechanical bulkhead. Because on large buildings, mechanicals are actually visible, smaller ones, they kind of disappear, these are part of the streetscape. And this, remember, our location will be very visible from this park. Because the park is 2 blocks wide, and the buildings immediately east of those, and south, on 11th. No, the ones on
Yeah.
54th, those aren't going anywhere, because they've had major investment in them. In the past, 5 years, 6 years. Now, I meant the ones to.
You're talking on 54th Street.
54th Street.
Yeah.
Between 11 and 12.
Where the hedge fund is, it's.
Yeah, and the life.
11 and 12, further west. Yeah, those two are going nowhere.
Yeah, these are just proposed.
It's all proposed,
This is proposed,
subject to negotiation, subject to discussion.
inclusive of design and redesign, so.
So just to give you the broad idea is that to make this happen, what's in front of us is a zoning map amendment, meaning changing the zoning from either M24.
Can you jump one slide, please? Thank you.
Yes, so, what's important here is that this board supported the block on 54th Street facing the park to 55th Street to be rezoned from M15 and M24 back in 2009. So we're actually saying, given this circumstance, we would propose yet another change in zoning. The M24 prohibits hotel use. And that was very specific because we were very concerned about getting lots of hotels in this manufacturing district. Since that time, we have a hotel special permit citywide, so that's governed differently. But we also were concerned about keeping the height low, there's only 135 feet. So this is a big give that our board is, has to consider. There's a zoning text amendment, and in both cases, that text amendment means that they can become part of the Hudson River Parks transfer district, and actually a chunk of development rights come off the piers and get plopped over here. And in exchange, we will raise funds for Pier 76. That's the big nexus here. Pier 76 on 34th Street.
Which is in our district.
Yes.
We want to remember that, we want the funds to go in our district.
Yeah, we got, in the last deal, we make sure the funds went to our district. Yes. Because we have the most development rights available right now. They, in both cases, have the ability to have an auto shop repair use in connection with the auto showroom, because that's a big issue at the union jobs, if in fact they stay. And then, a special permit in both cases to figure out a way to make the bulk and the height work better, both the height and the setbacks. The other portion is the M23, which is even lower FAR, and they're putting both of these to C47. C47 is mapped to the north. It's not exactly what we'd like, but that's where they landed. The last piece is, and this is still up for discussion, is that the developer said, would the board be interested in considering, for the first time in the city's history, mapping an FAR greater than 12? And the answer was, we would consider that. Not to say yes or no, we would consider that. And that would increase the housing. We said we consider it if and only if the bulk, height, and density, like it was managed, so it's not a 75-story building all of a sudden, which is a huge leap.
Mind you, that's considered.
Consider, yeah. Next page. The next page shows the piers that would be granting the development rights. And you can see, again, piers in our district that would be granting the development rights. And the big question is, and this is a question for HRPT, is that this time around, in their changed leadership, the board would certainly work hand in glove with HRPT to get the best result for the per square foot calculations for development rights. When we got this in block 675, it was lower than the private market by like 40%, which is shocking to us. The idea that you want to maximize your return to the park. Yeah, it was below what development rights were
It
selling
was
from.
half, it was less than, it was,
Yeah,
It was 200.
it was 275.
600 to 1,000.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, and it was in Chelsea, so this was a crazy moment, like, the fact that they would say, give us less. And so therefore, our board negotiated more, and it became a voluntary contribution on top for the park. So this case we were.
so the last question that I have, considering you said that this, this could be, a candidate for the transfer development rights. Right now, this is what they proposed, is this what they proposed without getting additional development rights? Or is this their proposal?
No.
And there may be also development rights coming their way to get even higher?
No, this development rights is they do this through HRPT.
No, I'm asking about what you saw in your presentation
Oh, yes.
from the two developers. Were they assuming that that was without transfer development rights, which would obviously allow them to have more, FAR?
No, from day one, it was always with HRPT development.
Okay, so they
But
all,
not
they,
12 if they
But
are.
no,
understood.
but not, because it
No.
didn't exist at that point.
I wanted to know if what we were seeing right now was assuming that they would be receiving the transfer development rights from Hudson River Park Trust.
Yes.
Thank you.
However, it also assumes, I believe, since we haven't seen the exact calculations, that this exceeds the 12 FAR.
Okay.
But what's important here is, that will put our board yet again, in the precedent-setting driver's seat, for the first time, it would be the first time it's mapped in the city. This project is ahead of MSMX zoning in the Garden Center, which is happening next month. So we have a right to, we have a right to help set some of the tone here. We want the density, but we don't want something that is overwhelming and certainly the one. Skyline of Dallas.
Well, thanks.
Is that a good way to?
That's excellent. Rachel, welcome to the committee. Rachel is a member of the committee. Joe, thank you for that. I'm sure, are there any questions about so far where we are? None.
Oh, by the way, this is the anti-development force that we're learning.
I just wanted to double
Really?
check, what we're assuming is, we're pretending you were the developer that was telling us about the project,
Yes.
right? That's what we're doing.
Okay,
And then now that process is started, because there is a clock for us to comment on the scoping, is that correct?
and we got the EIS.
Ask
No,
questions.
yes, sir. So yeah, with the scoping document, and go to the, there's one slide in this, sorry. Keep going, one more. Jimmy. Jimmy, did you hear me?
There's-
Yeah, there we go. So these are all the draft scope of work items.
Oh, okay.
This standard items we just saw in Western Valley Arts. Everything in character, construction, noise, public health, you name it. Yes,
Just some macro questions. Between the two sites, there'll be a total of 273 affordable housing units and 358 and 463 market added together for the two sites, right?
I'm gonna go to that page.
You did the math all the way to.
I really did the other.
And he's using his calculator.
I saw that. Nancy.
But the developers, so the applicants, have CB4 had any prior interactions with them? Are they good?
No, these are the landowners who are developing. So these are not major developer types. They're not companies. They are working with various teams, but these are the long-term holders of these industrial buildings.
So in other words, 760 12th LLC and 801 11th Avenue LLC.
Yes. And they have done some development in other places, but it is not like our normal guys walk in the door and they have, the division.
But we don't, there's not a negative
No,
bad actor.
we haven't heard anything. We'll find out during the public process.
And again, just the last question, in terms of height stories,
Hmm?
56 and 52 respectively?
Yes,
Potentially.
yeah, this is proposed
Right.
and this is the very beginning and we need to.
And just to clarify that 56 and 52 is operating under the assumption there is of 12 FAR.
No, it's higher.
Oh, it's higher, so that's,
It's
okay.
higher, it's higher than 12.
Thanks.
Well, I think it's because the total FAR of the residential and the FAR of the commercial piece combined to make it bigger. It's not.
So it's 12 FAR residential.
No, they asked specifically, do we consider going above 12 residential FAR?
What they presented is not about that.
Yes, it is, yes. It is, no, it is.
Either way, they haven't come to us and we have a lot of questions to
Yeah, we're
ask
gonna want
in
to.
general, and we will have the opportunity to speak to them if they are starting this process, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're handing out the assignment?
Does everybody understand what's going on? We need to ask all kinds of questions that we can put into this study. So I think, Paul, didn't people take on various one of these categories last time?
Yeah, and so when we did it for Western Layers, people took chapters and then went into what's in the draft scope. And there really isn't anything in there right now. It's really what we study. So I would also think about it from the perspective of this site, for example, has a former auto dealership on it, right? Other has its materials and tanks underground that need to be investigated. It's adjacent to the river. Are there issues that are gonna impact wet flood zones and things like
It
that?
could be a coal tar site from Con Edison, coal tar plants. So heavily.
The shadow is gonna be cast on the tar.
Well, the same thing, because it
Yeah,
can't
Well,
stay
that's
there.
what they say.
Well,
Could it be
the opposite
here?
direction of the sun. So yeah, think about what the site is like. And what the history of the site is, and what you think would be impacted, so, you know, we're. Like neighborhood character or something, when you're adding 500 units of housing, right, that's gonna be an important thing. Urban design and visual resources, like, you have a height that's closest to the river, and everything else steps down as it comes to the river. So people should think about what would they like to see on the site?
Mhm.
And how we can study it in the sense of this will have negative impacts if it's not done right.
Okay, so JD, I know you outlined the timeline at the beginning of the meeting, but what I'm remembering is that we would need to take a look at these, have some considerations and get them by before exec, so that at exec,
Correct.
you can be crafting
And
the
adopt
draft of questions
Right.
that we would propose to be considered during.
At the January 30th public hearing.
Understood.
And then it would be a letter before the full board.
So we have about a week and a half for us to be working on this. Does that sound about right?
And then do you have the full picture? The plan is to file the ULURP at this, spring or summer of 25. And it's certified the DIS at the same time.
Okay.
And then, you know, they'll begin ULURP at that point. I mean, because this is a 2025 project. So,
So, go ahead.
I'm happy to take a couple sections, neighborhood character, noise, and, community facilities and services.
Oh, boy, okay, why don't you take them all?
You know that whatever I'm taking, you're actually taking those.
We can take land use zoning public policy.
I'll take the link.
Socioeconomic,
I'll look at it.
Big stretch.
Rachel, okay.
Which one?
Socioeconomic conditions,
Yeah, that's fine.
community facilities.
I'm sorry,
I think we don't have to, it's okay, we can give
doesn't
up.
offer, public health,
Great,
air quality,
that's great,
if that's okay,
yeah.
and maybe hazardous.
I can do transportation.
Great. We don't just.
Transportation.
There you go.
Are they
Yeah,
also?
of course.
So that's why, or the other, maybe I should.
No,
Well,
we
the
sort
short
of
is that-
talked about going to other committees with this project, like we usually do,
Definitely need to be later.
but we might, maybe for now.
So.
I think
If you're on-
Just, Robert Allen.
Yeah, I mean,
has his hand up.
if Christina and Jesse have an interest in bringing it, then they can, but I suspect once they're aware, they'll be like,
Yeah.
that's fine, we don't wanna have them like bring it to the.
Is
full.
anybody on the waterfront committee?
Leslie is, but she's not here tonight.
That's a sign message.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Oh, wait a second, we have, oh, sorry.
And we do have Robert Atterbury.
He's not volunteering because he's gonna.
I know.
And I just want to make sure notes that the housing, of course, will be inclusionary, so it's permanent affordable housing, right? And the one thing I did notice, they're opting there's various options in NIH,
Mhm.
and we probably want to comment on that, because I think they're opting for the lower income option, we want to make sure that it's got a broader range. That makes sense, yeah.
Two quick questions, one, do this similar to the letter we got you for the previous, like.
Yeah.
Hudson. And then second, I haven't seen this too much in terms of questions for analysis or draft environmental impact studies. But as it's a good problem to have, as more and more either resident, commercial, but especially residential units are being built in CB4. There's gonna be more and more people and more and more families living here. There's almost 1,100 units gonna be put into these two sites if it happens like this. Let's just say there's an average of 2 people that live there per site. So that's gonna be 2,200 people. So they start popping up here, start popping up there, etc. Healthcare services.
Yeah.
So for example, where do you want to start with it? Both for the people coming in, but also for the existing residents. I don't know anybody, if you try to make an appointment with a doctor in the last year or so, getting an appointment can take some time.
Yeah, there actually is a Weill Cornell Center right there. It's fascinating.
Oh.
And on Sinai.
And Mount Sinai.
I know that center is right there.
But there are, a lot of the hospital units recognize that these changes are happening, and what they've been doing is instead of having all of their services be in one central location, they're actually opening up smaller locations. within-
Ambulatory centers, docs in the box, right?
No.
No,
Specialties.
no, specialties, like we're
Like
seeing
in car-
on,
cardiac thing.
Well, Presby just opened up a spinal thing down in Hudson Yards.
and Mount Sinai is opening something on 8th Avenue and 53rd Street, and so, again, they're popping up.
One thing you should
as
look
they-
at, Kevin, is that look at the secret rules or the threshold. 'Cause all these projects, believe it or not, like you have to have over 1,200 units to have a schooling seat in fact. Huh?
Right, it's a good point, and those are for people who can afford it. But people who can't afford, like the Ryan Center,
Right.
with all the sound seekers and the added thing, that is a problem.
Well, there's no public hospital on this side, right? The nearest one would be Bellevue or whatever.
That's a good question. When we had our CES discussions, that was a big thing we had, is what's the cumulative impact on schools, on public health, on community facilities? And they never provided us that answer. It's a constant problem we have where one-offs come in, they're always under the threshold of triggering.
Because you could run the gamut on this, you know, access to trauma service, trauma 1 services, ER, you know, OBGYN, prenatal care, geriatric care, except dental, behavioral health. So
Yeah.
I just suggest that's something that
Yes,
at
we
one
should.
point we should look at it for the impact.
I'm not, what about the groceries, is my question. Like some of these basic things, if we're putting this many units in this district here.
Well, if there's a food dinner there, then that's another story.
That's
Okay,
right.
so what are we missing?
Leslie, we're signing Leslie all.
Yeah, she's gonna get greenhouse gas and water and sewer and what about give her air
So we have
quality?
one guess, right?
We have one guest, Joe, thank you for that assignment, we'll finish this up in just a second, but we have a guest, Robert, are you here? Robert Atterbury?
Can you slide Robert over?
Mark? Thank you for joining us.
You can take down the presentation, Gene.
Hi, I don't think I'm allowed to use my camera, but I'm here. Thank you guys always for your thoughtfulness. We appreciate it. You know, we are still obviously there is not agreement on anything at the moment. I wanted to flag that of
I'm sorry, we have to say who you are, Robert, not everyone in the room knows you.
Oh,
Can you please introduce
Hi,
yourself?
sorry, Robert Atterbury, Hudson River Park Trust. Of the granting sites that were listed in this, I just wanted folks to know that's kind of the range of possibilities. There's no decisions made about where they would come from or anything like that. I wanted to note that for you guys that this coming Monday, we are going to be kick off the design meeting for the 29th 44th Street section. But we are focusing on the north side of Pier 79 ferry terminal through Pier 84. And it's gonna be Monday, 6:30 at the Intrepid, where we are looking at a design just sort of south of where this is, within the catchment area of it. It is, you know, we are continuing to build up a park in this area. I want to make sure you guys all got invited. We look forward to seeing any questions you guys have. And if you have anything for us right now, I'm happy to try to answer what I can.
Robert, were we accurate in saying that a good benefit of this, if it were to come to fruition, we'll go to Pier 76?
Yes, so I think what we have, you guys will remember when we have presented, I think we presented mostly to the Parks Committee, but for those who participate in the Pier 76 Task Force, we've talked before about the concept of an air rights transfer, TDR transfer, being like sort of a major kickoff point for us to be able to do 76. It needs about $150 million repair, of which we believe that the trust will have to come up with a substantial portion. So something like this could really be transformative in that discussion and really help advance it. Is what our current thinking.
And Robert, I have one question. I know this is not part of the Hudson River Park, but there is a little park there called Dewitt Park. So a lot of benefit is going to Hudson River Park. What about the benefit to Dewitt Park? Since it's going right up against it, is there any kind of reciprocity that can be developed between all this money going to you?
I think that would all sort of be outside of sort of our realm. In particular for this, we are limited to sort of the TDR transfer here and the funding of improvements in the Hudson River Park for our perspective. Certainly, obviously in the ULURP, if you guys, as you guys know, you can negotiate, you guys can choose to advocate for something else, do something else. Obviously, the more things that an individual site support, the more parks, the more improvements, more affordable housing, what have you, in sum total, there is like only so much money that can go around towards any one thing. So, but obviously we defer to you guys on that one. I'm not going to express any sort of opinion on it.
Well, no, I was gonna say, honestly, Woodland Park has a nexus for both of these projects.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it's very a tight nexus. And we should, as we go through the process, that should be an issue that we think about and have it developed or contribute to.
That's what, yeah.
Thanks, Robert.
Well, Robert's on, or maybe some of the room can answer this. The 12th Avenue site between 54th and 55th is opposite the shipping terminal, is that correct?
Yes.
The area in front of the shipping terminals where the bike lanes are, is that a part of Hudson River Park Trust? or-
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
And that's the part.
No, so none of the bike lane, the Route 9A bikeway is part of the highway, so it falls under state DOT. We have a maintenance
Okay.
agreement where we do minor maintenance. We like pick up trash and do the plantings and plow because like we use it and we are the closest agency on the ground. But it all falls under state DOT. Our eastern boundary is Route 9A's western boundary, which is the bikeway. So it's a divide.
And this whole reimagining the cruise ship pier terminal will play into this discussion, right, it's kicking off now.
Certainly, and then also for us, the area just south of Pier 84, where we are trying to do that whole Esplanade also, that section also. And really do a nice connection. We are just north of Pier 97, also doing the expansion platform there for the new building. If you guys may have been out in the new pier to north as we're getting closer to trying to expand the connections to Riverside South, which is just north of 59th Street.
Hey, Glen Cove.
Yeah.
It's
It's
Hudson River Park.
Clinton Cove, yeah. Clinton Cove, and then Pier 97, Pier 98, Pier 99, which is a sanitation pier, is actually our northern boundary.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, committee. Just get your questions in your call. We can, all kinds of questions.
So to JD.
The JD.
Paul doesn't want it.
Copy me the JD.
Joe, thank you for that.
I just wanna say again, the totally board that says no to all development, here we are, like 2 days later, talking about development.
If you didn't get the reference that Joe is talking about is following our vote to say no to related rezoning, we were called out in Cranes as a.
Cranes, Gotham, there were 3 articles.
It was probably the same, right?
No, Colin and Cranes, that was here.
No.
They used to.
They also
I mean, his point is,
They didn't put our.
we were an anti-development board who supports no development whatsoever.
They basically, in fact, we always say deny unless.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Explain the nuances of what a deny unless.
And let's keep in mind Kevin's suggestion is context, it's not just isolated development. It's
Great.
more context. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you. Paul.
All right, next we have a
Oh,
presentation.
I'm sorry. Let's vote on
Yeah.
the fact that we will
Oh, I'll make a motion.
gather questions and take these questions to the executive committee.
Okay, I make a motion that we put together a set of questions to bring to exec to create responses to the scoping so that we have the opportunity to make a comment at the January 30th.
And that a letter will be developed for the
Full
full
board.
process.
Okay, you wanna?
I want to amend it slightly, and it's not a
Sure.
question so much as what we want studied in the scope.
Yeah.
So there's comments for the scope versus, because questions implies like, we're gonna ask them a question, they're gonna say yes or no. These are things we want inserted into.
Okay, so I will
the
adjust
analysis.
that
So,
Thank you. How will they
Motion.
benefit to the good part?
We will make our comments on all of those sections and we will have that put together at exec to bring to the full board, February meeting. To be ratified, because we can then. Thank you.
All in favor? All opposed? Not opposed. Thank you.
Great. Next issue is a development proposal being discussed for a zoning text amendment for something, West 49th Street. And we'll learn from the brief again, we've had some informational sessions already. What we'll learn is that this is a parcel that splits the line between the Clinton Perimeter District and the Clinton Preservation District. And the issues we're confronting with that line that divides the building. How's that from the trip?
Hey, boy, here's the last one.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if you want to introduce yourselves and then I think you have a slide you want to run over.
Where's the best place for me to stand? Fantastic. Good evening. I'm Richard Lobel. I'm from the law firm of Sheldon Lobel.
Can't stand in front of the screen.
I will not. Right next to me. I'm here with Billy Lerner tonight. Billy is the owner of the property at 304 West 49th Street. And we're gonna introduce some maps to give you context, talk a little bit about what we discussed with certain members of the committee, and then potentially, hopefully, have a solution to what is kind of a challenging development question. With me also here tonight is Amanda Iannotti from my firm, Dan Russo, who is our project architect, and Sandy Hornick, who may be known to some or all of you, formerly Director of Zoning and City Planning, and is now a land use consultant for our project. So, 304 West 49th Street, next slide, please, is a property which, as Paul mentioned, straddles the line between the district, preservation and the perimeter of the district. It is a 5,000 square foot lot. There's currently a 6-story parking garage on that lot, built about 100 years ago, not particularly doing anybody any good. So the question is whether or not we can have forward for potential redevelopment of this lot. As Dan goes through the materials, what became clear as we talked about this as an applicant team was that 50% of the lot, that within the perimeter area, and it's exactly 50%, could be developed to a height of 21 stories. The remainder of the lot within the preservation area can be developed to 6 stories. So the question was whether or not there was a way to advance with the potential development of the lot, to get rid of the parking garage. And also to do so in such a way that would, first of all, ensure creating affordability at the site. And also, in addition to that, not create precedent for developments of similarly situated lots. And so I'll just briefly talk about what we came up with. Sandy, who spent much of his career at city planning, writing text in the zone resolution, can introduce a potential section, a text amendment, which would solve this issue. And then Dan can just go through some illustrative plans and materials. So the lot itself, 5,000 square feet, parking garage, built in 1930. The proposed action here, it's not rezoning. So many times we'll come before boards and ask, and we're board and ask for a rezoning of parcels. That's not this. What it does is through a text amendment, allows for application of the perimeter provisions of the special district to apply to the entirety of the lot, provided that the lot complies with certain requests. And so what this does is a text amendment of this nature, if it's narrowly drawn, will apply to a limited number of properties within a special district. So there's citywide zoning, and everyone's aware of that these days, and then there's special district zoning, and then there's whether or not you can provide text which limits that special district text. And what Sandy did here was basically, through the provisions of this text amendment, limited it to just one lot, which is this site. And so we can show you that in the coming slides. So with that text amendment, it would allow for the development of a 20-story building at this site. It would be roughly 59,000 square feet, 69 total units, and because of MIH, which currently was not applied to the site, mandatory inclusionary would now apply, and 25% of the units, or 17 in this scenario, would be affordable. And then there's ground floor retail with residential above, and Dan can talk about the setbacks and the nature of the building. The next slide shows the zoning map. Again, kind of crowded here, but the idea is that we're split between that C64 and the R8. This is the tax lot And the site, basically, there's a line through the middle of it that separates it exactly 50%. This slide is just an area map, which kind of shows the context of some of the area around the site. Not particularly useful in this regard. I think that probably when Sandy introduces the text amendment, there's some maps which show some building heights in the area of the property, which will be a little bit more useful to get context. The next few slides show pictures of the surrounding area, so you can kind of locate the site and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. The parking garage.
Yeah, same.
You good? There we go. Great, so there's the site. Again, I'm sure people are familiar, generally speaking, with the area and the nature of the development in the area of the site. Amanda, if you just want to page through this, I think it's probably most useful for Sandy to introduce the text amendment, and then Dan can talk about the building itself. Sandy?
So if you didn't recognize, that's right across from Worldwide Plaza.
Correct.
You didn't recognize for that, sorry.
Exactly.
Some people don't go up to this.
We were encouraged.
That's what they say in my.
It's had some excluded zone, not to use that height as a basis for us to get more height. So we're not making that observation.
Love the tie.
Can I follow on that point?
Yeah.
I wanna reiterate that point for everybody. If you look on the area map, the special Clinton district is kind of carved out where Worldwide Plaza is,
Yeah.
because this section right here is not, look, go back, yeah, don't stay there, stop moving. This right here, you can see this line comes across. This is Worldwide Plaza where Madison Square Garden used to be, so it was never part of the
No,
position.
it's actually in the district, but it's in the excluded area. And that's a real important thing, because we would not have gotten as far as we got with Worldwide Plaza if we were not
Right.
legally in the district.
Right, so that just gives a perspective on it.
And not
Thank you.
everybody knows that was the original site of Madison Square Garden. Yeah, not everybody.
I believe it was the special site.
You're right, it is the same thing.
Not the original site.
You're at
Right.
something.
The original site was
It
actually
was Madison Square.
It was the second.
third.
There
First two were in Madison Square. Anyway, not the subject of tonight's meeting. So this spot it's a very extremely unusual condition in the city. The zoning, when it was adopted in 61, and all of its amendments since, contemplated that people would get stuck in situations like this, and they have a split lot. It's called the split lot provision. The split lot provision generally says that if a portion of the lot, or a pre-existing lot, has to be pre-existing, which can create it, is less than 25 feet in one zone, and the small, less than 50% of the zoning lot in total. At the owner's option, they can extend the rules of the larger portion over the smaller portion. Extend the little, so the city happens all the time.
Except.
Huh?
Except.
Except in this case, it's very unusual. It's the third time in my 50-odd year career I've seen it.
Mhm.
I can't remember the third one. One of them was in Tribeca, and ultimately, it was rezoned as part of the Tribeca area rezoning, nothing to do with, so it's similarly 50-foot lot split. And this is a 50-foot wide lot, and it is split exactly in the middle. So it doesn't have one side that's more than 50% and one side less than 50%. So you can't use the split lot provision. So we had other contemplations of extending the district, but extending the district.
Or the zoning.
From the perimeter area in, we kind of encroaching on preservation area. What we tried to do is to craft a text in the special district. It's got a number here, 96-100. I assure you that's not where it's.
That's not where it's gonna go.
Right, it's just a placeholder, right? And what it would do is it would take lots of 5,000 square feet or less that are continuous since November of 1973, which is when the Clinton district was created. And has continuously been occupied by non-residential uses since that date, right? And the lot is equally divided between the preservation area and the perimeter area. And then in that instance, it would allow the floor area and the setback regulations and perimeter area to apply to the whole lot. It would in effect do what the things do for, because it's not really sure. We let that go, and then it would also require MIH over the entire lot. And it would also create a mechanism to calculate the 20% two-bedroom requirement.
And you got the right number on that, that just changed.
Huh? Yes. well, we had-
That section just changed.
Everything, look, for
I
every,
got like,
for a person of my age, that they moved everything around, it's thoroughly confusing, but they did it, they didn't ask me, so, right? We'll just have to live with it, and of course, it's not available in easily searchable.
Cindy, it was one of our few wins in City of Yes.
You got, they came back down to 66. Yeah, you did very well, so basically, that's what it would do. You want me to talk about the map or?
Well, there's two maps in there, you can just generally just. The next slide.
Okay, so, we looked at the whole district, and, it's better than I do, but right, so it's the perimeter area, it's the preservation area, it's the excluded area, here's our site. There are no other sites in the preservation area that are 50%, in the perimeter and 50% in the preservation area. You can see, obviously, there are tall buildings in the perimeter area, perimeter is designed to have tall buildings. But actually, what's interesting is there are actually some other tall buildings outside the excluded area, like there was the building right behind us, which is 194 feet.
The Belvedere Hotel built in 1906.
Yeah, I'm just, on the other side. So there are some other taller buildings around. And so what this would do is it would allow us to build a proposed 209-foot tall building. Janice explained that better than I will, so I think. That's your.
Exactly 50.
Exactly.
Wow.
If it wasn't exactly, if we, the smart thing to do. The smart thing to do is have a surveyor find a
49.99.
right, in the perimeter area that's bigger than the other one, and then.
But not the most political.
Right.
But can you go back one slide 3? So just want to know, you need to correct this now. This indicates the heights of 66 to 85 feet, and it looks like everything's in white. That's all the tenements. You really need to note that those buildings exist at that lower bulk, because it's giving a skewed picture, the lower height. And that's important for us. And that's just saying that,
Easy to pull up.
I'm just saying, Cindy,
Yeah,
where we have just been,
I agree.
that's really important to do.
These are all, these are the buildings, right? This is the stuff that's at 66 and above. Everything else is below 66.
Yeah.
Right, then add a category, do something like that, because as you go through the public process,
Yeah.
we're in a huge battle with them going forward, so.
And I just want to say thank you, because the thoughtfulness of recognizing the sensitivity of setting precedent and being that specific. Is what we always strive for ourselves, so thank
I
you.
was done for decades.
So as Andy and Richard already explained, we have a 5,000 square foot site, with a 12 FAR, so we can achieve a roughly 60,000 zone floor area building. We're proposing here a 20-story building with 69 units. We are complying with the 20%, bedroom requirement. Being that the text amendment applies the bulk controls, but it does not apply the perimeter area other controls. So the preservation area 20% continues to live on. So in order to recognize that 50% of the property is within the preservation area, with 10% of the floor area, obviously total, or 10% of the units, as 50% of the properties outside of the preservation area. So we're looking at a total bedroom count of 69 units, primarily 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, no studios on it, retail on the ground floor. It's not a big retail corridor, but we are maintaining the retail on the ground floor. Next slide, please. Here you can see exactly, we are completely split zoned. The carve out for worldwide is happening, as you can see at the top of the screen. Next slide, please.
You have to correct this map, it shows a building of 13 stories on that map. Right, yeah, it shows it at 13 stories.
My sincerest apologies.
Because of what it is.
Please don't remember that for the. Please forget that right now. Next slide, please. Stellar, next slide, please. Typical core configuration, retail occupying the majority of the ground floor, a small residential entry, to access the elevators and the scissor stairs.
Retail is 4,000.
Retail, just under
Yeah.
4,000. Probably gonna be a food and beverage, some kind of restaurant or something of that sort. I don't see mid-block retail doing well in any other regard. Next slide, please. 4 units per floor going up, it's pretty tight, it's a small footprint, not a whole lot that we can do. Note, City of Yes has reduced the rear yard requirements to 20 feet up to 75 feet. We haven't driven it down to 20 feet, we kept it at 30, where we started originally. It works marketably at 1 bedrooms for that size, so there's really no need to enlarge the units beyond that.
I want to know, we appreciate the larger rear yard, which is put in place as a requirement in the district, because all the buildings are tenements that surround it. And it gives light and air to the adjacent properties that are sometimes 80 feet deep or 70 feet deep. And the idea that a 20-foot yard is going to cut it in a dense district is great.
I never appreciated living and looking directly, I mean, we all live with it.
Yeah.
Right, but you don't wanna reach out the window and be able to ask for a cup of sugar, right? So, it's the same thing
That's a
here.
tradition.
Next slide, please. Pretty typical, only 2 floor plates, we set back at the 15th floor, continue to the 20th. And you're seeing the 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom configuration. Again, it's a very tight floor plate.
Again, your notes don't say the floor is those scope, it just says 20th floor. On the lower left.
But it does say 54 terrace, it doesn't,
No, look at your block,
I'm sorry, which one?
right next to where the yard space is. Go down, right there, that looks good, it doesn't,
Right here.
it doesn't, no, here. Yeah, but that doesn't say, that says 24 on the. That's
That's a
it,
typical 15 to 20.
Oh, it's where we cut the floor.
yeah,
And Revit,
it was just.
I understand, I apologize,
That's
we always
correct.
title everything from here.
Right.
Not much to really talk about here, it just is what it is, next slide please. And then rooftop recreation space as would be required. Pretty much all there is to it, so we're at 209 feet right now proposed total. City of Yes allows 235 feet with qualified affordable. We're not looking to maximize the height. If we continue and go to, we'll see some massings in a second. Next slide, please. You can see the tenements that occur further to our west. I imagine the 66-foot height limit was because most tenements are landing between 64 and 68 feet typically.
It was back in.
Okay. Next slide, please.
Why is the 14th floor higher floor?
We were doing a transfer structurally, we were imagining that we would have a transfer in there, plus I have to accommodate new energy code requirements, at that terrace, which get pretty thick. So in order to accommodate the transfer and the slab fold, we've done pencils before, it's just a lot of concrete and then it was very reduced. Next slide, please.
Anybody else want to?
I'm sorry.
It's not, we don't look like we're from Dallas, at least that's.
You don't.
Next slide, please. Again, just trying to stay contextual, we weren't really trying to propose anything aggressive or reinvent the wheel here, floor to ceiling windows, as much light as we can get into a pencil. It's relatively a pencil, but thankfully we're not a sliver. Next slide, please. This would be if we were to comply with the preservation area controls, which would limit us to approximately an 8 FAR.
With the split lot.
With the split lot condition, exactly. It also creates a very difficult condition for orienting our core. We've done pencils at 24 feet wide before. It's a very difficult core to work with, and really optimally, the only way it works well is with a single elevator that opens directly into a unit. So you end up with 1 unit per floor. The biggest challenge being you still need a corridor, even though you don't actually need a corridor, and that's a fire department rule. So what this condition most difficultly creates for us is we have to create a long, skinny linear core. And it really limits the ability to actually put more units into the building. You would realistically only end up at most in the 30s with the units, and that's because you would be forced to target 1 unit per floor for a lot of them. Next slide, please. And then if preservation area governed the entire site.
Can we go back one slide? Okay, so. Does everyone understand what that is? Is this an as of right? Yes, okay, so. And it took me a minute and I understand access really well, but what we see is that for lack of a better term, the base goes up, what, 6 stories thereabout?
It does.
6, and then it splits and then building rises up.
You have the west, which is in your
Yeah.
district at 48th and 11th. I worked on that project and it has the same condition where it abuts the preservation area. And if you guys know the west, it's the one with the boxes that hang out.
Yep.
It has a sheer drop wall
Yeah.
that faces east where it abuts the preservation area. And it's just a
48th and 8th.
48th thing.
Yeah.
No, 48th and 11th.
Oh.
It's where the Lexus dealership used to.
Got it, no, yeah, correct. Totally ridiculous.
So, yeah, so basically, it's like, if you look at the massing of that, it's 50 feet, the lot is what, 50 feet
So
wide?
50 feet wide, so you
Yeah,
have 2 25-foot buildings
Yeah,
essentially.
right, yeah, so the first 6 floors are 50 feet wide, and then the remaining 20 having a math problem here, 15 floors are 25 feet wide.
Correct.
Right.
And the irony of this is you end up having to put the core on the sheer drop off in order to be able to serve the 6 stories on this side. But then you also don't have any windows that can actually face the water and actually capture the views because you're gonna put a core there. So it's just a very inefficient configuration.
Actually, that's a whole other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, but that's not an impossibility to actually.
It'll get many fewer units.
I think the
Well,
bigger
yes.
issue, right, is that how many units, 69 versus what, 35 you said maybe?
At best, correct.
So when you mentioned units, and you mentioned at the onset that we had, under MIH, that there will be the affordability, you did not mention whether they're permanently affordable?
Oh, yeah, so,
Thank you.
one of the benefits of this potential application, is that through the text amendment, city planning, because you're in for ULURP action, is able to, impose mandatory inclusionary housing on the entire site. So the 17 units become permanently affordable,
Great, thank you.
and also pursuant to MIH, rules would be located throughout the building, through the, first 10 year twenties.
We just wanted to hear that,
Of course.
thank you.
And so, on the housing part, so, a couple things, one is. Because it's MIH, it'll be mapped in that separate section of the service MIH, but. You, with MIH, don't have to come back to us. So, we would like to do that during the actual ULURP.
Oh, 100%. That would be,
Because that is the housing committee's business where we go through, have you seen our questionnaire? Our like 12-page questionnaire, which is a very useful thing because they're on the same page, so as opposed to the group we met with just, is it last night? Yes. Oh my
Last
God,
night.
but last night, we asked them for apartment finishes, they put in dollar amounts. Right, so these are the kinds of things, as you know, our board asks all the time, make sure everything's equal, the same, and works, so we'd like to do that during this ULURP
it would
process.
happen, at this, in the same application.
Right, and then amenities, is there anything except for the rooftop terrace?
We are considering, carving out some of the retail. Retail is not going to be very successful there, so it's definitely something we can look at. The irony is the amenities create a deduction, which generates floor area, which then requires that we put that floor area somewhere usually, which would.
You don't want to do that anyway. I'm just asking, these are the kinds of things on the housing side that we ask all the time.
Sure, so the seller is, and I know when we talk seller, we're like, well, there's no windows, but the seller can be, it's not currently looked at for any retailing purposes. Any retailer that would occupy the ground floor here would really likely not
Need the whole
also
cellar.
need a cellar or even part of the cellar, so that would go to the residents entirely. And then, again, depending on what we're just not that far along, but depending on what the success of the retail could be, there's definitely opportunity to carve out of the retail there. It's, again, it's just not a strong location for retail to begin with.
No, smoke shops.
That's not really growing fair. I don't think we really have enough of those.
The cellar, speaking of the cellar, is there any remediation that you have to do because there was a garage there?
I mean,
We've done phase 1 and phase 2,
Oh, it's done.
and it seems to be clean. We did, yeah, we had to do a phone mortgage.
Gotcha. You were not kind of coal tar site as we see all the time.
It had the budget rental in it,
For years.
right?
That is correct.
Yeah,
The other things we've seen in a lot of our recent housing developments, that most units now have a washer and dryer. And it's.
don't think you can market a unit without them now.
Right, and it's an all electric building, I'm assuming, so.
There's not really much of a choice in that now.
I know, I'm just trying to, these are the kind
No,
of.
and there is, and, it's proved actually in our zoning chart, we take the electrification deduction, so
We
it
do.
is absolutely an all electric building.
Great, so that's.
Previously, when we started, we took the zone green deduction, but zone green's gone now, it's been replaced by electrification, but zone green is ipso facto built into the energy code already, so.
This just speaks to all of our bunch of constituents on the community board that like that. And the last thing is the architecture, as we go further, it'll be a building, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a massive study.
Well, it's a massing study, and we skimmed it to the extent to prove to you that it's not a glass box, because I don't think it makes sense to be a glass box. And, you know, we're not on the highway, if you were on the river, I understand the Richard Meyer houses, I don't wanna live in one of them myself, but I
You
understand.
wanna walk around in your underwear at some point.
I understand, right? I understand, you know, funny enough, I've never seen a human being inside. I've never seen you.
I would do Sandy, 50/50, I'm fascinated by that. So how did you examine the whole Clinton special district to determine that?
Well, first of all, you didn't have, you only have to look at every single zoning lot that borders preservation area and needs to have a perimeter.
Right.
Although I did also look at, and we had a consultant as well, look at, and at the 42nd Street perimeter area as well, just to make sure. And what else?
No other 50/50 splits.
There are other split lots.
But not the 50.
but not the quarter,
Right.
not with these conditions.
It's the conditions, the main thing I wanna say to the broader committee is it says a non-residential use.
Yeah.
The big concern we have here is there are split lots with a residential use. And if we did this kind of section, that would mean demolition and displacement
Yeah.
of those residential buildings, many of which in this corridor are SROs. That's not something we want to encourage at all, right?
Yeah, I think this really is
non-residential
great
piece.
because it allows for us not to have unintended consequences in order to just get to the affordable housing that we want in the housing.
Two other questions on the design issues, which probably come up later as well, but I think it's 11th floor terrace, just on the setback, what's that, is that gonna be outdoor space in any way?
It would
Or is that
be
just
to the resident.
Resident will have.
It is just, unfortunately, for the one resident, there is an opportunity to locate. So another way to look at it, which could work would be if the retail is shortened and shrunk. There's an opportunity to do a maisonette or do a recess. I've always liked recessing the rear yard as an opportunity, and then even leverage what is a cellar as actual livable area at that point, because you have legal light and air. And when you're in the back, whether you're on the ground floor or cellar, as long as you're outside and you have light, you can't tell the difference. It doesn't really matter at that point, and it's nice to just have outdoor space. So there is some flexibility and opportunity in there. At the moment, the way it's designed, it would be for that one unit, yes.
And so we want to be affordable, right?
Well, when we've had multiple terraces, we haven't negotiated that before, this is a single.
Well, as the architect, it goes to the architect.
Second question comes up a lot with our board, other board members, is sort of internal services for the building, so waste removal, things like that, just doesn't pile up on the curb, it's all internalized, so.
Absolutely, so there's refuse is all in the cellar, it would be brought up either via the elevator or through the secondary egress that doesn't go through the lobby. I really don't like carting trash through a lobby if at all possible. But that's where it would go. I mean, you can't even, Don't you get fined? It's not actually legal for you to just leave it outside.
Not anymore.
No, but absolutely, so that's, again, the cellar currently is looked at for, mechanical uses, we'll have, our arcs, and when FDNY gets theirs, they'll have theirs down there too, it's all for services, refuse, compaction, et cetera, et cetera.
So you will be asked during the public process if you will do containerized garbage on the curb. Because at the point this building gets built, this will be in effect. And you can, yeah, they have to opt to one or the other, so opting for the curb. No preference, it's residential. Yeah.
The setback is at the 14th floor. What height is that setback at?
145.
Right. And how, I know this is different from, say, the Garment District where the setbacks are on the 8th or 9th floor. What is there a precedent or is it just street line? That,
And it's actually, we are very close to the maximum height limit on base, the maximum, base height would be 155, so you could take it 50, one more story if you want at the setback. The reason we didn't do that is we need to fit in our 2 bedrooms and that's the way the design works, so,
Wait a minute, Sandy, this is for you. There's a special regulation here that requires a step down in the last 25 feet of the 150 feet of the perimeter area. You have to put that in your text. We did that when we did the Times Square rezoning and the theater development rights. It's a specific thing that says after 125, you must step down to 50. It's very obscure.
After 125, you must step down.
After 125 west of 8th Avenue, you must step down. This is remember Joanne Mason, remember that name?
Yeah.
She negotiated that. So you have to do another little fill up and you fix that.
So, well,
our lot line starts at 125, by the way, our eastern lot line is exactly 125 from the avenue.
Eastern line.
So that may be why.
Oh, so you're not 150 deep. Okay, that's okay. In fact, I rather went boing on that.
Cause this is just informational, but you're not looking for any action directly from the certain.
We would take a vote.
Open to like one of those concept things that we've done before, the general concept. And ask them to return with full blown
Yeah,
product.
we can say, we certainly appreciate you coming and,
I'm happy to make a proposal, a motion.
Go
So
ahead.
I make a motion that we are supportive of the concept that was presented, which takes a non-residential building and converts it into a residential building, which will give us permanently affordable units. And we understand that the thoughtful crafting of the proposed land use changes is to ensure that there's no precedent for figuring out how to deal with the split lot.
Yeah, we really appreciate the nuance.
Yeah.
That's the thing, which is not the city's actions, right? The nuances are not them.
so we have a motion.
I have a motion, second, Kevin? All right, everybody in favor? Any conversation on the motion? No, okay. Everybody to the most saying.
Just had our appreciation, been working with us as
Thank you so much.
I really think that this is, really, yeah, I would echo that, they've come to us a couple of times now, they heard our concerns, brought in somebody who's really good at figuring out the nuance of how to not establish precedent. The first time we saw this, we were like the encroachment into preservation district is something that we always fight, something we fear with City of Yes, and so we want to really thank this team.
And a shout out to Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn, no?
No.
Old new business, I just want to run through.
you get a positive response from the board.
This is the board that says no to everything, so. Yeah.
It's that, you're not always, you can
We
cite.
can look at our videos, we should just send them all our videos, right?
I just want to touch on a couple of things that we continue to delay the CHDC presentation on demolition protections. A few meetings ago, we talked about that we want to tackle revisiting the housing plan and how to integrate both 12 FAR residential. Because we know that people are going to be coming forward with plans, and if we are ahead of them and we can have some planning process, and that also continues to get tabled. Next, and then the other thing is now that City of Yes, we lost a lot on special protections. JD and I have talked about, it'd be good if we start thinking about things that we can proactively engage in to implement protections for the special permit district, recognizing what City of Yes is saying to us.
Getting the mayor.
Huh?
Getting in the mayor.
Getting the mayor might help, but we're looking at a long, 20-year forecast, right? So how can we, now that City of Yes has been passed, what components of that can we look at to maybe put some new protections in place? We can advance forward some language on that. So I want to continue the conversations on that in the future.
I don't know if you have, or we already know the answer to this, now that it's passed. Clearly, the request for going higher is something that they're going to the city for. Did we end up getting overall some, community input if they make that request?
No, we got a 10-foot reduction.
So my question,
I love that phrase, 10-foot reduction, by the way. It's an increase that was here.
Right, 10-foot reduction from the proposed increase.
but here's my question to you then is, as a board, which we are advisory, if people do not have to come to us, how do we go ahead and be proactive? What are some of your thoughts and being proactive in terms of not having those unintended consequences that we were concerned about by this going through?
It's really weird. I really felt like, how are we gonna know when somebody buys a 4-story tenement and is gonna add 10 stories to it?
That's what I'm asking.
Right.
How then-
And how do we manage that? And how do we do that? Well, the only way to know that is to have a constant review of the DOB website. Just like New York Unity does. They're constantly reviewing over and over and over.
Right, so it could be constant review, it could be requesting that the special permit district has notifications of these applications before they come in. We can maybe find some language to write that we could put forward to adopt as part of the special permit district, maybe FAR restrictions overall, so that we can.
But that's exactly what's not been adopted. And we're talking about, how do we do it in the next like 2 or 3 years? And this administration, as long as it hangs on, and the general feeling in the city is like, they don't want.
I agree, but as I just said to you, I'm also thinking about a 20-year forecast, not a 3-year forecast, because I think that if we now have the opportunity to put some, like, think back to 1972, when this was all instituted, people had the foresight to look 20, 30, 40, 50 years away. We are going to experience, in my opinion, some dramatic negative impacts in the next 4 or 5 years. But how can we avoid that from hitting the entirety of the district over the next 20 years?
So I understand,
So I
but we're
wanna
not
think-
talking about something that we could be doing for the immediate.
I'm not, that's not where my mind is at, but it could be, maybe there is some stuff that we could do immediately, but I think you're right, Joe, that under this administration, we are going to see some things come in. And what I asked this committee to think about is look at, if those things come in, what steps could we take to stop it from happening 10 years from now? Or like, we'll learn as we go along. Somebody will come in and say, oh, I've done this and now I can get this as a result. Let's learn and keep our eyes open so that the protection of the special permit district is sort of something we think about. And we're gonna lose some fights, but I think that in the long run, if we can get some systems put in place to add in layers of protection to offset the negative consequences and unintended consequences of City of Yes. I just want people to be thinking through what might happen. And again, Joe, I agree, it's not something that's gonna happen this week, this month, this year, this administration.
I'm just trying to say that I don't want to create any false expectations, because that's not where we are right now in the politics. The only thing that's gonna change here is there is a different political representation across the board.
Exactly,
Because
I'm not,
But I'm thinking in between both of you, that there is still the opportunity in the past, is to still have an ongoing conversation with city planning. And because it still will have to
Hi, everyone. The meeting, we had some technical difficulties, but everything was discussed and we're adjourning the meeting. Everyone have a good night.